Ma'aser Kesafim is a minhag, and therefore, because it's a minhag, depends how you accept the minhag upon yourself.
It's a minhag.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's not even a derabbanan.
Nope.
Okay.
Okay, so but we were going through the priorities of tzedakah, because obviously Ma'aser can be used for tzedakah. You don't have to use it for tzedakah.
What?
So I can put this one over there. And if you take a look at the top page, you'll see that the primary charities are redeeming captives, and then on the next page, you'll see that supporting the poor, and there's a priority list, which first your person's own family, parents come first if you have no other way of supporting them. Then he has one's children, other relatives, the poor person's your own town, neighbors first, poor people from Eretz Yisrael, finally poor from outside Eretz Yisrael. According to Chasam Sofer, Yerushalayim has precedence over all the towns of Eretz Yisrael. Now, so on the bottom of page 104 there, it says that Yoruch HaShulchan says that it can't be that you have to give all your tzedakah to the topmost charity, such as Pidyon Shvuim, which you could do, right? Theoretically, you give away my Pidyon Shvuim. It is, as he says in English, that in 105, if we take the simple interpretation that the precedence of one category over a second category, means that no contribution need be made to the second, it is well known that every wealthy man has many poor relatives to exhaust his charitable funds, and a fortiori means kal v'chomer, an ordinary household of modest means whose charitable allocation is limited. Hence, those poor have no wealthy relatives who starve. How can you possibly adopt such an interpretation? Therefore, it seems to me the proper interpretation is that as follows: every wealthy man or householder must allocate a portion of his charitable funds to poor who are not his relatives. Should give a large allocation to those who are his relatives. Other categories of priority should be treated the same way. Okay, so obviously, it means that you prioritize, but you don't forsake other causes. Otherwise, hospitals will never get built, because why would anybody give money to a hospital if it's a secondary tzedakah? Obviously, it's something where it's necessary, even though it's secondary. So therefore, you have to allocate things according to what you want, what you think is appropriate. And then it just says in a given category, there's also a priority list. Woman takes precedence over a man, and a scholar over a non-scholar. Same with scholarship priority is Kohen Levi Yisrael, food as priority over clothing. But then Reb Moshe Feinstein says that list of priorities only applies to a gabbai tzedakah, to an administrator. You as a private individual can give tzedakah to anything you want. You don't have to go by the list of priorities that Gemara gives. Gemara's priorities are for the public funds, not for your private funds. Okay, they're at your discretion. It's your money. You give it to what you want. So then on the top of the next page, which is from the Yechav Das, so he is talking there, Rav Ovadia Yosef, about the uses for Ma'aser Kesafim. And I'm not going to go through the whole tshuva here, which is very long. He says in Besikum, on the bottom, first on the bottom, page 106, at the bottom left is translation for a Moshe. And then the Chofetz Chaim says the major aim of the institution of Ma'aser Kesafim is to help Torah scholars. And every person should endeavor to use at least half of his Ma'aser for this purpose, providing needs of his relatives have been met. Rabbi the Netziv says that a scholar who is actually present before the donor, even though he comes from another town, has precedence over non-scholar of the town because of special mitzvah honoring a Talmid Chacham. So if the Chofetz Chaim has literally half, then again we'd be stuck. Nobody'd be getting any no other cause to get any money. No, you get money to the shul, right? So I don't think half is literal. I think a significant portion, but not half. Now Rav Ovadia says here on page Beisamach in the Sikum, Hanoeg, because the Ma'aser Kesafim is a minhag. Hanoeg lafrish mos Ma'aser maskorto, somebody who takes money for Ma'aser off his salary, Nikol v'chav and all his profits, Rashayna kos midmei maaser. He's allowed to deduct, right? There are tax deductions and there are meiser deductions. What is he allowed to deduct? The may parnosas v'alkakolas bonav nosav hagidoli maaser magil sheish. Whatever money he spends for the parnosa of his children above the age of 6. Because up to the age of 6, you're chayiv to chazal or mechayiv you to support your children. But above the age of 6, let them loose in the world. Let them make their own way. So if you support them, it's charitable. Okay? So, even if they live at home, you can take that off. You can take from your meiser money to marry off your children. It's a big chunk. Such as for to buy them an apartment, or retain and furniture, so they're able to build a house. The Kolosh came, certainly. The men continue on to the kollels, which we've been blessed to have many. Also, when his daughter is married to Talmidei Chachamim, it's a great mitzvah to give them a parnas. So with dignity, with tzedakah gedolahi, and the closer the relative, the more priority it has. Matovu manoim, and it's good and pleasant. So he wants to take a meiser from all his profits, maskuton his salary. Yatnem meirosh b'mfurash. He should make a stipulation explicitly. Lifnei she'yavo lo ha'revach ha'maskores, that before he gets the profit or the salary, she'chol la'asos b'mamos ha'maser kol mitzvah she'yirtzeh k'fi ro'o senov. That's a question. Do you have to make it tonight in order to use it for other things? Or can you just use it for other things? So Ravadi says, okay, it's best to make it tonight. So before you start taking more money, meiser money off, you can make this condition that you're going to use it for other things, for other mitzvahs, not just for tzedakah. V'im lo yitnakein b'feirush, what if it's too late? Yaseh Torah b'fnei shlosha, so go be mater neder. Al shelo mashu mafrisha maser bli neder. That he didn't say bli neder when he took off the meiser. V'achar shetiru lo, and after he allow him, yatnei atnaya now he can go back and make the condition. V'im shato d'chuka mibchina kalkalis, and if he has difficulty with his economic situation. He doesn't have the wherewithal to take off my Kesafim from all of his salary, all his profits. He can stipulate ahead of time. There's only going to take meiser after he deducts his household expenses. But in all the years of my marriage, till last year, the year before, we spent more money every year than we actually made. So finally, we had a bit of a Yerusha, so then we actually taken more money than we spent. But it took 36 years to get there. So if a person is in the situation where they they can't make ends meet, they don't have to take a meiser. It's not, they can say, I can't make ends meet. I can deduct my household expenses, which can be, especially with Manazeh, significantly larger than your income.
What qualifies as a household expense? I guess that's like the
not your vacation.
Not vacation. I'm saying
your mortgage. That's your
yes,
household expense.
Of course. Utilities, furniture.
But you also said that
groceries.
The money
groceries.
for raising your kids. If you have a kid over 6 years old, right, to the point where that then takes effect, pretty much everybody's putting more than 10% of what you're making towards your kids.
Right.
It's like
If you count tuition, which my understanding can be counted toward my service.
So we're going to get to tuition. We're going to get to tuition. Yeah.
Between clothing and
yes.
food, yeah.
Yes.
I would say then everybody, even if you don't give to an organization, you're still officially considered.
Pretty much.
So I'm Yotzei Meiser just by paying my bills.
No. You don't have to. That's deductible. That's not Meiser. That's deductible.
Deductible.
From the amount you have to pay Meiser on.
That covers it.
You understand what I'm saying?
No.
It's not to say you're giving Meiser. He's talking about what's considered that you're giving Meiser.
Right.
And he's saying that the expenses you have for your children above the age of 6 are considered to be Meiser.
Off of that amount. I see.
It's like your adjusted gross income on your taxes.
Right.
So that's a significantly lower amount.
Right. Instead of making $100,000, you subtract all your family expenses. Now you made $20,000 based off of this. That's what you would owe Meiser on.
Right.
Right. If I sort of got that right.
Interesting.
You come to the shir to find out things you didn't know.
I know.
And not things you did know, right?
It's like, whoa.
Okay.
Okay.
Changes my viewpoint. The price is quite a bit.
Your neighbor who's very rich, and he's able to do so. Yochaz tzaddik darko, he should be righteous in his way. It says, kol ma'aser laniyim avyonim, go of his mitzvah to poor people, impoverished people, amalei Torah, l'yeshivos kedoshos. So again, hospitals have got to get built. It is not realistic to say that a person who, you don't have to give to a hospital. Shuls have to get built. You don't have to give to a shul. But schools have to get built. You don't have to give to school. But to say that all of your money should go, if you're rich, to Aniyim, Evyonim, Molei, Torah, Yeshivas, Kedoshos, that's overstating the case. And I don't think he meant it either. I think he meant that to whatever you can give to Tzedakah, these are the major tzedakahs, and he's just mentioning them.
But through supporting the school, you're also supporting Mother Rebbeim of that school.
Right, so we're going to come to that. Yes. Okay, so let's turn the page here. Okay, so I know the print is a little low. For a little small, I mean. But starting with the top left. I'm going to just go through the tshuva here in English from Diane Grossnass, who was a very well-known Diane in England. He says that a person financial service has deteriorated is no longer able to pay his teacher for the Torah lessons he has been accustomed to do in the past. May use Meiser money for this purpose. So he says that the Diane Grossnass shows this case, and now the Chasam Sofer above, who says that you shouldn't, since there's no definite undertaking to receive lessons for a specific period. Because if it's a specific period of time, then you should not take use Meiser money. But as Torah study, or as Torah study is a mitzvah for which the means are lacking from any source. Actually, I don't remember the Chasam Sofer saying. You know what? Wait a second. Chasam Sofer says. I don't know, it's not here. I don't remember what the Chasam Sofer says, actually. Because I described this is the 107. I don't know 107. Do you have 107? Okay, so I remember what the Chasam Sofer says. So let me not assert that I'm saying all the Chasam Sofer if I'm not. So in any event, he says, as Torah studies mitzvah for which means are lacking from any other source, then grossness permits the abuse of Meiser funds. Okay, so this is a secondary use for tzedakah funds, to support your own learning of Torah. In other words, you have to pay a Rebbe to teach you Torah. You can use Meiser money for that. Okay, the next, but now we get to really secondary things, and A is books.
What about time?
What?
What about time to learn?
Time doesn't count for the Meiser. What do you mean?
Let me give an example. Let's say someone makes $100 an hour, right? And if they take 10 hours off of work to learn, could they use that money to make no?
It has to be actual money. They pay out, not time.
Okay. But for Sfar, I'm thinking other.
Well, that's the next thing here. It's pages are not numbered at the top, and it looks like this. So books. one of the items specifically mentioned as permissible in the quotation from Rabbi Menachem of Merzberg, who was the source for what you can use Meiser money for, was buying books for studying Torah and lending others for study. This view is accepted by the Shach and Taz. The issue was made by Taz that a person must mark such books as having been purchased from Meiser funds, so the family should not confuse them with his own property. So it's a fascinating thing, because that means you can keep them in your house. But you have to write that they're Meiser, so that they're constantly available for loan. So if you don't keep them home, it's even better. If you give Sfarim to a shul or a yeshiva or any other public institution, a library, so then that is a legitimate use of Meiser money. And I think it's based on this principle. You can't limit what you're giving to tzedakah to supporting poor people. Otherwise, other needs of the community will not get met. Most later authorities accept this view, but the Rabbi Shmuel Levi emphasizes that it applies only to a person who means to buy books or otherwise lacking. Those are books he keeps at home, right? If you need to buy yourself a set of Shulchan Aruch, and you don't have money to do it, so you can use Meiser money for it. He considers that Rabbi Nachum of Merzberg distinguishes between mitzvahs from which the poor ultimately benefit, which Meiser may always be used, and other mitzvahs for which Meiser may only be used when the means are lacking. Let's skip down to what Nachla Shiva says in the italics. One may use Meiser money to defray the wedding expenses of a poor bridegroom or the circumcision expenses for a poor person, since money is really used for the needs of the poor. Therefore, even a wealthy man who has alternative means, which he could pay for the mitzvah, may use Meiser for this purpose. So, if a wealthy man wants to give money for a chassan of a poor person, of course he can give Meiser money for that. Obviously, a wealthy man should not, however, use his Meiser for the purchase of books. Only person for whom the means to fulfill the mitzvah is otherwise lacking. And the Aruch HaShulchan, he says, is dubious about this. He says in the next page of 110, in the italics, if we permit him to buy books, why should we not permit him to buy tefillin or a talis for Meiser money, provided he allows others to use them, likewise a shofar, ezra, or sukkah. In addition, even if we do permit him to buy books for Meiser money, he is the only one of those who benefit. The others can say, we do not want the books to be kept in your house, but in the base medrash, so they are available for anyone who wishes to use them for studying. It's therefore advisable to avoid using this concession. So he's trying to say that, again, this form which you keep in your house, that's not really Meiser, because you're de facto. Even though other people can borrow them, not going to borrow them, right? So therefore, but it sounds like if you put him in shul and he donates for him, then it is legitimate Meiser money.
Even someone who's wealthy, even someone who could has the means to do it.
Right.
Right, but you said to donate this far. This is beforehand. This isn't even really talking about donating. This is for keeping your own.
Right. That's why he's dubious about it. Right. He's skeptical about it. Okay, because although it's for Meiser money, it's yours. You're just writing what I'm seeing, people writing, nickname mimos Meiser. Whoop-de-doo. If you're the one hoarding it to yourself, what difference does it make that you bought it from Meiser money from me? But it does say here, in fact, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach does permit a poor person to use his Meiser money for tefillin. Now, I don't know, it's really not a poor, if it's okay, it's okay even if you're not poor. But evidently it's preferable to use Meiser money for a different cause, but you can use it for tefillin. And same thing with lulav and esrog. If you don't have the means to buy one for yourself, and you can't get it as a matona manas lahachzir from somebody else, so you can use Meiser money. Okay, and then
what about someone who wants to keep Sfarim at home, but let's say Magish here, so they're his Sfarim, but the public will benefit from him having them because
no, it won't make it any better. No, because it's still his own private books. But he does say here that the Shlomo Laniado, the Beis Dino Shlomo, says that to buy books for poor students for Meiser money, even though it has the means to do so from private resources, is certainly a legitimate use of them. Okay? All of that was one secondary usage. Now, secondary usage, and there are many secondary usages, is B, an aliyah and shul. Okay? So the Taz suggests a person may use his meiser money to cover the cost of a synagogue mitzvahs, provided he didn't intend to do so at the time of undertaking the mitzvah. This is on assumption that such donations are used for the poor. There is no objection to the honor which a person receives from this use of meiser money. The person, however, incurred an obligation of this kind without such an intention, he cannot afterwards decide to use the for meiser funds to cover other debt. Now wait. The next paragraph, it says, but Rabbi Shlomo Laniado says that in his city, most of the proceeds of synagogue donations are used for essential communal needs, like salaries of communal servants, synagogue lighting, etc. These obligations are obligations for which meiser money may not be used, according to him. Only that portion of synagogue donation corresponding to the portion used for the poor may be taken from meiser money. So he wants to say that, according to this, you can't use for aliyah your at least where the money goes to the shul. You wouldn't be able to use for the money for meiser money for the aliyah. But I'm not so sure about that, because it would seem if it goes to the upkeep of the shul, that's also a mitzvah. Why is that less of a mitzvah than any other one of the mitzvahs? So I get here it's probably as it's talking about a case where it's going to and I don't know why synagogue lighting, Ner Lamor V'Yayin Kiddush L'Avdallah, it sounds like a big mitzvah to me. So I don't know why Meiser Kesafim should not be able to use that. Everybody agree if you stipulate ahead of time. And you say, when you start giving out Meiser, or you're matin netter, and you start over again, that if you say, I'm going to use Meiser money to give to donations to my shul, that for sure would be valid use of Meiser money. Okay, and...
still valid for meiser money if the shul is using it for things like the kiddush? Or is it just more for things like that?
That's a good question. I think things for upkeep of the shul, not just for kiddush. But we're going to get to that. He's going to get to that.
I think even directly, if you donate to the shul and later the shul has an event. Right.
I can hear both ways, and we're going to get to it later on. So the Shloah Kaddish, in fact, if you take a look at 112 at the bottom, says he must draw a distinction. Rabbi Menachem permits the use of meiser only for mitzvah which no other person prepared to undertake. Wherever there's a synagogue auction in which the mitzvah is sold to the highest bidder, final purchaser may take from his meiser only the sum which he added to the previous bid, since this is the sum which the charity chest has gained from his intervention.
It's a bidding different.
Right, the big difference between the other bid and his bid.
No, because the first bid also was meiser. The first guy did meiser.
No, meaning the first guy, I guess bidding was, if you make a bid, you have to pay that money. And
If I make a bid first, let's say I bid $18, that could be meiser money. Now you bid 36, so the first 18 would have been my meiser money. It's still meiser.
Is that the thought?
I mean, it's still meiser money that's going to the shul.
Yeah, they would have got, but it doesn't matter. He's saying it's a chiddush. The Shloah Kaddish is saying, but he's saying that since the shul would have made this money anyway.
They would have made it for meiser.
I know it's a very big chiddush. I don't understand it. I agree with you, but it's shloah is a shloah. So he says it's only what you increased over the bid of the previous person. It's a chiddush, tremendous chiddush. But he says here that Tzisel Eliezer rejects this position. That we look just the benefit of for the kupa. So therefore, according to that, it would seem that you're allowed to use it. But anyway, we're going to get to communal contributions in a minute, which has to do with, actually next time, which has to do with actually giving directly to the shul. Something which is no gaya, perhaps not in our shul, but in the third, we're going to just point as a heads up, in the third column, there's a child shul's pnei Yeshua. May meiser money be used to pay for the salary of the president, rather amidst in a city where there's an edict obliging everyone to make a specific contribution each year towards such communal expenses. So the question whether the president of the shul can actually be paid from meiser money. I know you make a big salary.
Very, very large salary.
Okay,
That's why we pay the big bucks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna. There are a lot more uses for which meiser money can be put. We're going through them one by one. Next week we'll get to the next series. But right now, we just started.